What a weapon he is.
Boy, he is extremely fast.
Touchdown! DeSean Jackson!
If you close your eyes and think of the most dynamic players in NFL history, it is impossible to not think of DeSean Jackson.
I have never seen anything like this.
Over the course of his 15-year career, Jackson produced some truly unforgettable plays.
Touchdown!
Jaw-dropping catches.
Oh, he is ridiculous.
And miraculous moments.
That was unbelievable.
And in this video, we're going to let the tape explain why he is the best deep threat in NFL history.
He is beyond
He
belief.
is so much fun to watch.
If you're going to be a quality deep threat in the game of football, there are two traits that you need to have: speed and ball skills. Let's first start with speed, because Jackson's wheels were elite. The juice he had off the snap, that made him a threat to touch the paint in the end zone anytime you put the rock in his hands. And that speed struck fear in the heart of the opposition.
Hey, the free safety is nowhere to be found. Look at him. He's way back. Yeah, he's way back.
As a defensive back, when you lined up against a player like DeSean, you had to change your depth. You had to change your technique, your alignment, your stance, because at any point, this could happen to you. And you did not want to end up on the highlight reel.
In and out coverage on DeSean Jackson, and he runs right by the corner, right by the safety.
A defensive back's goal on any vertical route is to stay in phase. This means that they are just shy of being hip to hip with the receiver, and they've got the ability to look back to find the football while still staying close enough that you could steal his wallet. Now, this puts you in a position to make a play on the football if it's thrown in your direction. But if you're playing a receiver like DeSean, who could roll out of bed and fly by you before rubbing the sleep out of his eyes, then you're in recovery mode immediately. You are out of phase. And in this position, it is significantly harder to make a play at the catch point.
Give the people what they want. Give them some more D-Jack.
It would be one thing if he was just a situational deep threat with that speed. But with DeSean Jackson being a legitimate every down receiver, it made the offenses he was a part of that much harder to prepare for. Because he could torch you on any play. And so on every snap, you had to know where he was and account for his Olympic level speed.
He's gonna go! DeSean Jackson cartwheels into the end zone!
Jackson's speed was timeless. He ran a scorching 4.35 at the National Scouting Combine back in 2008, one of the fastest times that spring.
Go ahead over the top, run it down. There you go. Hey, good job of working it.
Nearly 15 years later, as a 36-year-old mid-season pickup for the Ravens in 2022, he hit nearly 22 miles an hour on a deep ball from Lamar Jackson, which ended up being the fourth fastest time in-game of any player in the NFL, according to Next Gen Stats. That speed never dropped off.
Touchdown, DeSean Jackson!
And Jackson could always run by defenders without breaking a sweat. But it wasn't just his explosiveness that made him such a danger to opponents on every play. Because I would argue that his ball skills were even better.
What a play by Jackson!
Receivers who run 4.3 in the 40-yard dash, they come into the league every year. But DeSean's ability to track a deep ball was absolutely special. Now, it's important to know the difference here between hands and ball skills as a wide receiver. When you talk about a receiver's hands, that refers to the literal action of catching the football. Does a player have the manual dexterity, the focus, and the proper technique required to secure the football when it hits his fingertips? But make no mistake, catching the football, that's a skill. That means that it can be improved upon. Guys can get on the jugs machine and catch 100 balls at a time every day to hone in on that, to stay consistent and to improve. But ball skills, that is something completely different. That, in my opinion, is an innate trait, an ability to track a ball down the field over the shoulder without having to watch it through the entirety of the throw, to adjust to a ball mid-flight, read its trajectory, and get yourself from A to B and go and make a play at full speed without breaking stride with a defender on your back. That is unique, and there's not a machine to rep that out. That's not something that you can easily replicate in practice. No, you are born with this trait. And D-Jack, it was a core part of his skill set. It was his ball skills that made him truly special, and this was something that he was groomed for at a young age. Whether it was from the numerous workouts his father put him through as a kid with NFL players out in California, or his long, decorated career as a baseball player, DeSean developed into a smooth catcher of the football. Jackson was a first-round quality center field prospect in high school, and it's easy to see that transfer over from the diamond to the gridiron.
Back to DeSean Jackson. It couldn't have come at a better time.
Jackson made tracking 50-yard deep posts look as simple as shagging fly balls in batting practice. The speed, that was outstanding, there's no question. But it was the ball tracking that made him so special in this area of the field.
I have never, in all these years, seen anybody who can track a ball more skillfully than DeSean Jackson.
And over the span of his career, no one in the NFL was targeted more on downfield throws than DeSean Jackson. And he made the most of those opportunities because no player in NFL history has ever scored more 60-yard touchdowns. Only one player, the all-time great in Jerry Rice, had more 50-yard scores. And only 3 players had more 40-yard touchdowns. Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, and Terrell Owens. That is gold jacket company for D-Jack.
DeSean Jackson makes a simple play an extraordinary play.
When he first got to Philadelphia, Jackson became the 5th player in NFL history to put up at least 900 yards receiving in each of his first 4 seasons. And it's notable that during that stretch, he played with a couple of quarterbacks who had 2 of the strongest arms in the league in Donovan McNabb and Michael Vick. Having quarterbacks with those physical gifts was so important because with their arm strength, they could not overthrow him. Watching 2 of the best quarterbacks from their era just cut it loose to number 10 down the field was a recipe for fireworks every Sunday in the fall. And Jackson was graced with some strong-arm signal callers at his other stops throughout his career as well.
I don't think you're going to be able to turn me off tonight. Hey, I'm on max.
With the big play potential of this passing game, defensive coordinators had a very limited menu of coverages at their disposal because there are only so many coverages that can allow a safety to play over the top. These too high safety looks not only led to light boxes in the run game, but it also made it much easier for the Eagles coaches to game plan in the passing game. Think about it. If you know what coverage the opponent is going to play with Jackson on the field, you can consistently attack that scheme.
It's nice when it works out the way you draw it up. They're taking advantage of those safeties, getting the football deep.
And going back and watching the tape, there was one play that exemplified this best during his time in Philadelphia. The play was called divide, and the concept itself was pretty simple. DeSean would line up in the slot and would run a deep over route. His job was to cross the face of the front side safety. If he could do that, then it would be a foot race into wide open grass. And the reason why was because on the other side of the field, another receiver would run a stop route to hold the eyes of the backside safety. And with him occupied, that left this giant void down the field for Jackson to work. The job for the quarterback is pretty simple. Just let the ball fly. Throw it out beyond the defense where no one else could get it and let DeSean go to work.
A little play-action fake. DeSean Jackson outruns the secondary. The ball is perfectly thrown on the numbers, and he just races to the end zone.
Now, this play was from 2009 when Jackson averaged 52.8 yards per touchdown catch that season. That's the highest in NFL history among players with at least 10 touchdowns in any given season. This play was so successful for Andy Reid in Philadelphia that Reid brought the play with him to Kansas City and he installed it with another future All-Pro speedster in Tyreek Hill. This play hit in Kansas City numerous times with DeSean Jackson serving as the template for Hill. And what I loved too about that play was the change-ups that the Eagles were able to run off of it. Jackson was great at running double moves, where he sold one route and then did the opposite. This one was called angle. The Eagles ran these over routes with the divide concept over and over and over again. So when they would run these over and back routes in the angle concept, it worked just as well. Jackson would get the defensive back to overreact so hard on the initial stem of this over route that it created an equally large void on the front side of the field. And it created a ton of big plays for the Eagles offense.
Goodbye, DeSean Jackson.
The impact that DeSean had on offenses he played with cannot be denied. Whether you look at stats like yards per attempt or explosive pass plays, nearly every time Jackson joined a new team in the NFL, the offense improved in those categories. And the year after he left, they got worse. That is not a coincidence. That speaks to the dimension that he consistently brought to those teams over the course of his entire career. Now you'll notice that on a lot of these plays, Jackson is not even touched by an opposing defender. And you might be wondering, why didn't teams try to jam him? Well, first off, DeSean was so fast that it was risky business to try and press him at the line. If you lost early on, you were not going to recover. DeSean was also very skilled with his releases. He was hard to get a finger on at the line of scrimmage. And last but certainly not least, his coaches did a great job of moving him around the formation to keep defenses from getting physical with him early in the down. This gave him free access to the secondary, allowing him to be a menace down the field.
It's an outstanding catch by DeSean Jackson.
Now, while this video centers around Jackson's unique abilities as a deep threat, it's really important to note that he was much, much more than that. Ask any coach that worked with DeSean, his skill as a route runner is something that consistently comes up. He was a true three-level threat, someone who could impact all three levels of the field, obviously deep, but then also intermediate and short as well. Not all wide receivers know how to use that elite speed to their advantage. DeSean knew how to get corners to overplay the threat of the deep ball before putting his foot in the ground and breaking off the route, creating instant separation thanks to his elite stop-start quickness. His football IQ was extremely high. His toughness was underrated. He consistently showed the ability to take a hit and hold onto the football down the field despite his size. And then you get to his value as a return man. Jackson was one of the best punt returners in football when he first arrived in Philadelphia. He became the second player in NFL history to score touchdowns as a receiver, runner, and punt returner during each of his first 3 seasons. In his second season, he became the first player in league history to be voted to the Pro Bowl as both a wide receiver and as a return specialist. And honestly, if he had just been a return man throughout his career, he would have been a Devin Hester level impact player at that position. He would have been worthy of Hall of Fame recognition just on that alone. But as his value rose on offense, his role on special teams waned. The coaching staff did not want to put their star in harm's way more than they had to. That said, when the coaches knew that they needed a big play, they knew what number to call.
Jackson takes it at the 35, picks it up, looks for running room. He's at the 40, he's at the 45, midfield, he's at the 40, he's let it go! DeSean Jackson, I don't care if he jumps, dives, he's running around, and he's in the end zone, and there's no time, and the Eagles win! The Eagles win!
This is Miracle in the Meadowlands #2.
Now that miracle play stands out for a lot of reasons, but it was far from the only big play DeSean Jackson would make under the lights. In talking with his former coaches and teammates, multiple guys said that when the Eagles played in prime time, under the lights, with everybody in the country watching, that's when Jackson took his game up another level. He always played his best in rivalry games, and in those high leverage moments, he always found ways to make the biggest plays.
Tell them we on prime time, baby. Already, baby. Tell them prime time.
Now, it's very easy to make a Hall of Fame case for DeSean Jackson. He's one of 3 players in NFL history with 11,000 receiving yards while averaging over 17 yards a catch. The other 2 players are already enshrined in Canton. And I mentioned earlier that no one in NFL history has more 60-yard touchdowns than DeSean, who did it 26 times, 26 60-yard touchdowns. Only 21 players in the league have even half that number. And of those 13 players, 11 of them are in the Hall of Fame. This is a mark of greatness. Jackson is the only player in NFL history to lead the league in yards per catch in 4 separate years, including 2018 in his age 31 season. Jackson played 15 years in the NFL, and in 13 of those 15 seasons, he averaged more than 15 yards per catch. Only 4 players in the history of the game have more than that, and 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame.
Hey, this is a big game for us. High intensity all night. High intensity on 3. 1, 2, 3. High intensity. Let's go.
Next Gen Stats started providing GPS data for the NFL back in 2016. And since that time, amongst qualifying receivers, no one averaged more air yards per deep target than DeSean Jackson, nearly 35 yards per target. Keep in mind that this was on the back 9 of his career. but it still showed the dynamic quality that teams knew he brought to the football field. And over the course of his time in the NFL, Jackson proved that he did one thing better than anybody else in the game.
Boy, he can run.
The numbers and the tape speak for themselves. DeSean Jackson is the best deep threat in NFL history.